Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff from the CyberPro podcast, back with another episode today. My guest is Anthony Stevens of 6clicks. He is going to share with us his epiphanies on life, and more importantly, or maybe only equally as important, the ability to reimagine risk and improve your skills as a cybersecurity professional. So with that, Anthony, good morning. How are
Good
you?
morning, Jeff.
How
Thanks
are
for having me
you?
on your show. I'm very well.
Glad to hear it. You're in Melbourne, Australia, so you've probably had a little less coffee than I've had today. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, I'm obviously an Australian born person. I'm based in Melbourne, and I'm currently the CEO and one of the founders of a company called 6clicks. And look forward to sharing a little bit more about that with you on your show. But essentially, we have developed a software as a service platform designed to be used by advisors, MSPs, and businesses to help them with particularly cyber risk and compliance.
Wonderful. As the CEO and founder or co-founder of your company, tell us a little bit about your journey as to how you arrived to today, your company, and really from your perspective as the CEO, the leader of your company, where you see yourself and the industry going in the next year or so.
Yeah, great. Well, the backstory is kind of long, but I'll share the short version. We were founded back in about mid 2019. We launched our product a couple of weeks into 2020, and we all know kind of what happened thereafter. So some people refer to us as being COVID born, which is kind of a reasonable analogy or reference, I guess. But my background prior to that, I've spent probably 25 years in a variety of corporate roles, predominantly as Chief Information Officer for large corporates, including I ended up at KPMG. I was a partner there and moved from being CIO to Chief Digital Officer for the firm. My role there was to think about, which is kind of what led to 6clicks. My role was to think about the market and the technology available for advisors. Of course, at a firm like KPMG, you've got literally hundreds of thousands operating across a range of different areas, including cybersecurity, of course. But was to think about technology that would be useful for those advisors to automate the way they do work. But also in the process, I looked at, what is the sort of risk and compliance software that businesses use or need to effectively operate. And I guess through that experience, it became apparent, a number of things became apparent. A, there's a massive opportunity there. B, the software and capability out there, either people are using spreadsheets or the software that is available is, pretty long in the tooth. And that was the impetus to it at some point, then leave KPMG, dust off the sort of startup entrepreneurial skill and mindset and go for it. And that's kind of how we got to this point. And happy to share more in terms of where we're going. I think ultimately, as we all know around the world, it's an incredibly exciting market. The growth, the opportunity, the complexity, but also therefore the opportunity to do things better is just reinforced to me every single day. So I think there's a long way for us to go. We're still sort of pretty early, having launched our product just over 2 years ago. It's a reasonably young company. But we've now got, most of our operations and businesses in the United States, obviously a very strong presence in Australia because that's our roots. And we've also got operations in the United Kingdom. So, yeah.
So you said something very compelling about the COVID-born company. I think that places you guys in an awesome position in that because you were quote unquote born during that time, you don't have a lot of backstory or historicals holding you back, right?
Right.
You saw the emergence really of the dispersed workforce. Yes,
Yeah.
we had it before then, but really the forced dispersed workforce that occurred, and now the voluntary dispersed workforce as we see it evolving into. That being said, how do you see that affecting what you're doing and the path that you will continue to go on?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very insightful point. I mean, one of the things I've always thought, I suppose in my career, I've spent most of my time in services-based industries, be them professional services, managed services, advisory businesses, etc. Human capital intensive businesses, right? And I think pre-COVID, where people relied for very good reasons because we like it. We're social creatures, we're social beasts, relied heavily on working together in a boardroom or an office room and sitting with, an Excel spreadsheet up on the screen or a PowerPoint slide or whatever it might be. I think the reliance on more sophisticated technology, we'll call it that way, was kind of not as obvious. And I feel people, when you spoke to advisors, and I still think it's the case today, people relied heavily on relationships, right? They
Mhm.
rely, as in the personal connection between people, going to lunch, developing rapport, all those kind of things that we all know are important. But of course, before COVID, that's the way you did business, right? You, if you're a consultant, you understood your client, you took them, entertained them, or took them to lunch, or you know, got to know their business whatever way you could. And then when you did engage, you went to their offices and you sat, run workshops and all that kind of stuff. COVID comes, a lot of those basic things aren't there, and I think it's forced the industry, the services industry, that is, to really think about, genuinely the role of technology in automating and streamlining service delivery.
Mhm.
And I think ultimately that's a really good thing. So COVID has been tough for lots of reasons related to culture. It's very difficult. People don't want to work in a distributed manner, but I think in driving efficiency and innovation in service delivery models, it's been a tremendous thing because it's forced people to think about how productive they are. Rather than sitting in Ubers and cabs driving around from customer to customer, you can jump from one Zoom call to a Teams call or whatever, seconds later. And if you've got the software to support you doing that, then I think it's a lot easier to make money and deliver better outcomes for clients.
And here we are.
And here we are.
Very well put. Thank you for that. And that actually drills down perfectly into our next question, question number 4, which is what you wanted to talk about, which is how to reimagine risk, demonstrate compliance, and overall improve cybersecurity. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Like, so I think the backdrop is one that probably doesn't need a great deal of explanation, and your listeners would, kind of nod and say, of course it's the case. But in summary, I think we all know that, boards are expecting greater levels of transparency into the risks that the organization has around cybersecurity. And then secondly, you can take the other side of that coin and say, well, there are compliance or regulators or compliance obligations that need to be met. Either companies want to meet them or they have to be met depending on the industry that they're operating in. So that's the sort of, top of the tree backdrop. And then there's the sort of on the ground issues that are being faced. In Australia, we've had obviously I read the local press, and there's been some pretty high profile hacks, and vulnerabilities continue to emerge. Hackers are alive and well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, your listeners would appreciate these themes. I guess what we've thought about is, okay, how do we make it very, very easy for organizations to automate aspects of their risk, or large aspects of their risk and compliance program, right? And the first question we asked, and essentially the problem we've solved, is what do you currently do? What if you're a cybersecurity professional working in a large organization? How do you report up, and how do you manage your risks, and how do you think about ensuring compliance with standards, be it, PCI DSS or 27001 or NIST cybersecurity framework or whatever it might be? And the short answer for most organizations is they use spreadsheets, right? They use spreadsheets, and it's a very manual process. And we know that that hurts because the labor shortage in the cybersecurity market is acute, right? Like there is a huge lack of skilled expertise. There's plenty of people who are coming through the ranks, but at the more senior levels, those resources are few and far between. So essentially what we've done is said, how do we genuinely replace spreadsheets, right? And essentially there's a few things that we've done. One is we've architected our platform to be used by, we call it hub and spoke, which allows it to be used by advisors and MSPs as well as their clients. So the hub being the advisor MSP, the client being the spoke. All large organizations, right? Fortune 500 companies using our platform with central divisions thinking about risk and compliance, but then autonomous individual teams who need to run their own, activities, right? So our platform's designed in a very multi-tenanted, distributed manner. So it's point number one. And that helps with adoption, right? It allows you to kind of put the technology in place and allow it to be used by an individual team without necessarily spending 12 months configuring a monolithic system. This is the first point. Second point is we've embedded all the content into the platform. And Jeff, this is the kind of killer blow. And when I mean content, I mean all of the, we've got literally hundreds of standards, frameworks, regulations, all of that kind of stuff is baked into the platform, as well as, policies, control sets, risk libraries, issue libraries, and so on. And if you ask a cybersecurity professional, what do they spend most of their time doing? They spend a lot of it in spreadsheets, trying to get all those reference points cut and paste into a spreadsheet to then manage. So we've kind of knocked that problem off as well. And we describe that as a bit like the App Store on your mobile device, right? It's the place that you go when you log into 6clicks and you go and pick and choose the stuff that's relevant to your business, right? So if you're running an ISO 27001 program, you get the assessment template, you get the control set, you get the risk libraries, you get the whole suite of stuff that helps you for that program. The third thing that we've done is we've got all the sort of the functionality, I guess, you would need to run a full ISMS. In cybersecurity terms, people describe these things as information security management systems, right? Like the soup to nuts way in which you operate your cyber program. That's what our platform does. And so we've got third-party management, we've got audit, assessment, risk management, issue management, vulnerability management, the whole shooting match. And all of that functionality automates the processes that you would otherwise use spreadsheets for. And the fourth thing is kind of just a little bit of icing in the cake. When we started, actually, the backstory, when we started the platform, we started development, but we also employed a team of PhDs, and they were focused on artificial intelligence to solve a couple of problems related to cyber risk and compliance. And the problem, the main thing that the AI tool Haley has solved is understanding overlap between standards, laws, and regulations, right? So we know those things are coming out like thick and fast, right? GDPR, there's the California Privacy Act, there's now, I think, 128 privacy regulations around the world. Cybersecurity frameworks, there's hundreds. But we all know you don't need to be an expert, but you can just imagine there's tons of overlap between these, right? So if you can quickly identify the overlap, and we do that in about 7 seconds between any one of those frameworks, you can therefore reduce your compliance burden overall for your organization by working out what is the stuff that's unique and what is the stuff that's genuinely different between those standards.
Fascinating.
So those 4 things are what we think helps companies reimagine risk, demonstrate compliance, and improve cybersecurity.
And on that, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it, and have a wonderful weekend.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You made it to the end. Thanks for watching the Cyber Pro podcast today. You can find more content here and here and there.